A $17.5 million money transfer, a black woman CEO, and 5 crushing words that made her feel like a criminal in her own building. We've placed a hold on your funds. This isn't just another business story. It's what happens when banking while black collides with power, and the payback that followed changed an entire industry. Tuesday, 10:17 a.m. Dr. Althea Vance walked through the front doors of Consolidated Trust's main branch. Her shoes clicked against the cold marble floor, a sound she knew well. After all, her company, Vance Biosystems, paid rent for 3 entire floors in this very building. From the 48th floor, her company had changed medicine and health research worldwide. Today's business was simple but important, paying for a new lab in Germany. After a year of talks, everything was ready. The papers signed, the money prepared, the future planned. At 43, Dr. Vance had built a multi-million-dollar company from nothing. Top schools, major awards, the kind of success story America claims to celebrate. Have you ever done everything society told you to achieve, only to still be treated like you don't belong? Today's story shows what really happens behind those fancy bank doors when successful black Americans try to use their own money. The bank manager, Mr. Thorne, greeted her with that particular smile that never reached his eyes. His handshake was firm, putting on a show of respect without actually feeling it. The money transfer should have been routine for someone with over $180 million in this very bank. But what happened in the next 15 minutes would reveal how invisible walls remain standing, no matter your wealth, education, or success. If you've ever been doubted, questioned, or made to feel small because of how you look, hit that subscribe button now. This channel tells these stories, and what you're about to see will confirm experiences many people pretend don't exist. Because sometimes the most powerful stories aren't made up. They're about real people facing real discrimination in America's most respected institutions. Dr. Vance placed her portfolio on Mr. Thorne's desk, opening it with practiced efficiency. "I need to execute this wire transfer today," she said, sliding the documents toward him. "It's the down payment for our new research facility in Germany, $17.5 million. Thorne nodded professionally. For a company with Vance Biosystems assets, such transfers were standard procedure. Her CFO had even sent advance notice 2 days earlier. "Of course, Dr. Vance. Let me pull up your account information." His fingers moved across the keyboard while Dr. Vance glanced at her watch. She had a board meeting at noon. This transaction should take 20 minutes, maximum. Thorne's eyes narrowed slightly as he reviewed the documents. The change was subtle, almost imperceptible, but Dr. Vance had sat across from enough doubting men to recognize it instantly. His shoulders stiffened, his blinking increased. The professional smile remained fixed on his face, but something had shifted. "This is quite a substantial sum," he said, his voice now carrying a hint of concern that wasn't there before. "It's 9.7% of our liquid assets." "Dr. Shu," Vance replied evenly, "well within our normal operating parameters." Thorne cleared his throat. "I'll need to see additional identification." "You have my ID on file. I've been banking here for 7 years. "Yes, but for international transfers of this size, we have enhanced security protocols." There it was, the neutral-sounding barrier, the policy shield. "Your CFO's notice mentioned this was for property acquisition?" Thorne continued, though the purpose was clearly stated in the documents before him. "Yes, as indicated in the purchase agreement. And you've conducted due diligence on this German company." "We've been working with them for 3 years. They're a subsidiary of Meyer Pharmaceuticals, one of the largest in Europe." Thorne nodded, but his questions continued, each one more intrusive than the last. "Who authorized this purchase?" "Our board, unanimously." "Have you worked with international properties before?" "We operate labs in 4 countries. Is there perhaps someone else from your financial team who typically handles these transactions?" The question hung in the air. They both knew what he was really asking. Several employees had stopped pretending to work. They were watching now, witnesses to her growing humiliation. Junior tellers who processed her company's payroll were seeing their building's largest tenant being treated like a potential fraud. After 15 minutes of questioning, Thorne folded his hands on the desk, his expression a mask of professional regret. "I'm afraid I can't execute this transfer today. There are irregularities that our corporate security team needs to review." I've placed a temporary hold on the funds. The words hit Dr. Vance like a physical blow. In seconds, she had been transformed from respected CEO to suspicious character. Her credentials, her success, her very presence in this building, all invalidated with 5 words, a hold on your funds. Her face betrayed nothing. Not the rage, not the humiliation, not the familiar sting of being reminded that her achievements offered no protection from prejudice. I see, she said, her voice cool and measured as she gathered her documents. What makes this kind of discrimination so insidious is that it hides behind policies, procedures, and polite smiles. No slur was uttered, no voice was raised. Yet Dr. Vance had just experienced the modern equivalent of being told, "You don't belong here." Dr. Vance's experience wasn't an anomaly. It was a textbook example of what researchers call banking while black. A landmark study from Brigham Young University found that when black and white entrepreneurs with identical financial profiles approached banks for loans, black business owners received significantly worse treatment. Despite having the same credit scores, assets, and business plans, black entrepreneurs were offered inferior products and faced additional questioning about their qualifications. The numbers tell a clear story. According to federal data, black applicants are denied home loans at 80% higher rates than white applicants with similar financial profiles. This gap persists across all income levels. Joe Morrow experienced this firsthand in a Minnesota U.S. bank branch. Attempting to cash a legitimate $900 paycheck, he was accused of fraud, handcuffed, and detained while police were called, all before the bank even tried to verify the check with his employer. Dr. Malika Mitchell-Stewart, a Houston physician, faced similar treatment at JPMorgan Chase when she tried to deposit her first paycheck from a new job. The bank staff questioned the check's legitimacy despite her credentials. These discriminatory practices persist through seemingly neutral policies. Terms like enhanced security protocols and risk assessment sound objective, but research shows they're applied unevenly based on race. Modern redlining continues in sophisticated forms. The Department of Justice's case against City National Bank revealed the institution opened only 1 branch in minority neighborhoods over 20 years, compared to 11 in predominantly white areas. The bank paid $31 million in settlements, the largest redlining case in history. Bank of America faced similar charges for systematically failing to maintain foreclosed homes in black and Latino communities while properly maintaining identical properties in white neighborhoods. These practices don't just harm individuals, they devastate entire communities by lowering property values and draining wealth. The banking industry's discriminatory patterns have led to over $200 million in DOJ settlements in the past decade alone. Yet many cases never reach courts or headlines. These aren't isolated incidents, they're proof of a system working exactly as designed. Drop a comment if you or someone you know has experienced banking while black. Your story matters, and sharing it helps others recognize they're not alone. Because the first step toward dismantling discrimination is making it visible. Dr. Vance exited Consolidated Trust with the same measured dignity she'd shown inside. No rushing. No visible anger, just the controlled movements of a woman accustomed to navigating hostile environments. Before the revolving door completed its rotation, she had her phone out. The call connected instantly. "Marcus, get the litigation team on a conference call. Now, and tell David to clear his schedule." Within 20 minutes, Dr. Vance sat at the head of her conference table on the 48th floor, 3 stories above the bank manager who had just questioned her legitimacy. Marcus Chen, her general counsel, and David Albright, her CFO, listened intently as she recounted every detail of the encounter. "We're documenting everything while it's fresh," Marcus said, his team already preparing affidavits. "This is textbook discrimination. The disparate treatment is blatant." Dr. Vance nodded. "This won't be addressed with a strongly worded letter or a private settlement. I want a complete response." Her strategy crystallized into 3 distinct actions. First, legal preparation. Her attorneys would build an airtight case for racial discrimination under the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. They'd request all security protocols, reviewing how they were applied to other clients with similar transactions. They'd demand every email, internal memo, and recording related to her accounts. "Don't file immediately," she instructed. Let them wonder when the hammer will fall. Second, financial consequences. By 2 p.m., David had initiated the process to move Vance Biosystems' $180 million in assets to First Republic Bank. The transfer would be complete within 72 hours. Their quarterly earnings report is due next week, David noted. Losing our business will affect their numbers noticeably. Third, media exposure. Dr. Vance contacted Janet Morris, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist at the Wall Street Journal, known for her coverage of corporate accountability. No direct quotes from me yet, Dr. Vance specified. Report that an incident involving discriminatory banking practices occurred with a prominent minority-owned business. Let their PR team scramble while they try to identify which client they mistreated. What made this approach so effective was its reliance on witnesses, people who could transform a private humiliation into a public cause. The bank tellers who had watched, the journalist who would document, the financial analysts who would question the sudden account loss. Without witnesses, discrimination remains invisible, Dr. Vance told her team. Consolidated Trust is counting on my silence. They expect embarrassment or a private complaint they can manage internally. But institutions rarely reform themselves without external pressure. Studies show that banks implement meaningful anti-discrimination policies only after lawsuits, regulatory actions, or public relations crises. Internal reports and diversity initiatives fail without accountability. By 5 p.m., the pieces were in motion. The legal team had secured statements from 2 bank employees willing to describe the incident. The asset transfer was approved. Janet Morris had begun asking questions that made Consolidated Trust's communications department visibly nervous. What makes Dr. Vance's response so powerful isn't emotional outburst. It's that she understood the system well enough to dismantle it using its own tools. This isn't revenge, it's accountability. 48 hours later, Dr. Vance settled into seat 2A on Lufthansa Flight 452 to Frankfurt. The first-class cabin hummed with quiet efficiency as flight attendants prepared for departure. Rather than waiting for Consolidated Trust to release her funds, she had leveraged a line of credit from First Republic to personally travel to Germany and close the laboratory deal. The bank's obstruction had delayed but not derailed her company's expansion. Dr. Vance, "Welcome aboard," said Carmen, the chief flight attendant who recognized her from a recent Forbes feature. "Can I bring you anything before takeoff?" "Just water, thank you," Dr. Vance replied, appreciating the simple recognition of her professional identity, the basic respect denied to her in the bank lobby. As the plane reached cruising altitude over the Atlantic, her phone connected to the in-flight Wi-Fi. A notification appeared, a breaking news alert from the Wall Street Journal. The headline read, "Consolidated Trust CEO issues public apology after discrimination allegation, announces $50 million minority business fund." The story had broken. Janet Morris had published a detailed account, including statements from bank employees who witnessed the incident. The article was already trending on social media, with thousands sharing similar experiences of banking while black. Carmen passed by, noticing Dr. Vance reading the article. "Good news?" she asked. "Justice in progress," Dr. Vance replied. This moment captured the perfect symmetry of her situation. While banking institutions often create barriers for black success, air travel represents mobility and freedom, the ability to transcend boundaries. Yet even here, discrimination follows. Kayitra Bryant, a black airline passenger, once discovered an offensive African service charge on her bank statement after a flight. Meanwhile, Rexy Roll, a young black female aviation executive, built a $90 million Caribbean airline despite constant skepticism about her capabilities. The cabin crew, like bank tellers, journalists, and social media users, serve as witnesses to both discrimination and triumph. They see black excellence in first class and also observe the subtle indignities that follow successful black travelers through airports and beyond. The view is different at 30,000 feet. Have you ever witnessed discrimination and wondered what you could do? Hit like and share this video. Becoming a witness is the first step toward creating change. As Dr. Vance's plane began its descent into Frankfurt, her phone buzzed with a final update. Consolidated Trust CEO William Parker had released a formal statement addressing the incident. I am deeply sorry for where we failed and accept full responsibility for the treatment Dr. Vance received. This incident revealed significant gaps in our training and protocols that we are committed to fixing immediately. We have reached out to Dr. Vance directly to apologize, though we recognize that words alone are insufficient. The statement went beyond typical corporate apologies. Parker announced concrete actions: a $50 million fund for minority-owned businesses, mandatory anti-bias training for all customer-facing staff, and a complete overhaul of security protocols to ensure objective application. Most significantly, the bank would implement regular, mystery customer tests, sending black and white clients with identical financial profiles into branches to monitor for disparate treatment. Results would be published publicly in quarterly diversity reports. What made this reckoning so remarkable wasn't just the public humiliation of a major financial institution, it was the ripple effect throughout the industry. Within weeks, 3 competing banks announced similar initiatives, fearing they might be next in the spotlight. The Federal Reserve issued a bulletin reminding financial institutions of their obligations under fair lending laws. Congressional hearings were scheduled to examine discrimination in banking practices. What began as one woman's humiliation had catalyzed systemic change. For Dr. Vance, the victory wasn't about personal vindication. The bank's $50 million fund would help hundreds of minority entrepreneurs avoid the barriers she had faced. The new protocols would prevent countless future incidents of discrimination. Her individual suffering had been transformed into collective progress. As her plane touched down in Germany, Dr. Vance reflected on the difference between revenge and justice. Revenge would have been satisfying but fleeting, perhaps a public confrontation or an angry lawsuit. Justice, by contrast, created lasting change that extended far beyond her personal experience. The true power of her response lay in its precision. She had identified exactly where the system was vulnerable to legal pressure, financial consequences, and public exposure, and applied force at those exact points. Later that afternoon, as she signed the final documents for the laboratory acquisition, Dr. Vance felt a profound sense of closure. When she returned to her hotel, a bottle of champagne waited with a note from Carmen, the flight attendant. "Congratulations on your expansion and your victory." Dr. Vance smiled, but didn't open the bottle. Her satisfaction came not from celebration, but from transformation. From knowing that banking while black would be a slightly less humiliating experience because she had refused to stay silent. "No, thank you," she had told Carmen. "I have everything I need." This isn't just about one CEO's experience. It's about recognizing that discrimination evolves but never disappears without resistance. The marble floors may be polished, the rejections wrapped in professional language, but the impact remains devastating. Dr. Vance's story matters because it exposes how success offers no immunity from bias. Harvard degrees, corner offices, and multi-million-dollar companies cannot protect Black Americans from being viewed with suspicion when they step into certain spaces. What makes her response exceptional is that she refused to accept individual compensation. She demanded institutional change. She understood that dignity isn't granted through personal exceptions. It requires rebuilding systems that work for everyone. For every Dr. Vance who has the resources to fight back, countless others face this discrimination without recourse. The bank teller who assumes fraud, the loan officer who requires extra documentation, the branch manager who makes a call to security instead of to a supervisor. These moments accumulate. They become stories passed down as warnings. Keep your receipts. Dress professionally when banking. Always bring extra ID. The mental checklist that forms part of the black tax, the additional work required just to be treated equally. Stories like Dr. Vance's matter because they show that change is possible. Subscribe to Black Narratives for more powerful stories of resistance and triumph. Comment below with your thoughts on the most effective ways to respond when institutions fail us. And if this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to understand what banking while black really means. The German laboratory Dr. Vance purchased now employs over 200 scientists. Consolidated Trust's $50 million fund has helped launch 37 minority-owned businesses. Both exist because one woman refused to accept discrimination as the cost of doing business. Because sometimes, the most powerful form of revenge isn't destruction. It's forcing those who would exclude you to build a better system for everyone.